The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Film Foundations, the collaborative show between Weirding Way Media and Someone's Favorite Productions. I am Chris Dashu, one of your co-hosts from Weirding Way Media, but more specifically, the Culture Cast.
Is this going to be a thing now moving forward? I am Ryan Verrill from The Disconnected and Someone's Favorite Productions.
On this show, it is our job to entice you in to talk about or listen to us talk about either a actor, director, microgenre, or in this episode's case, if you've clicked on it, you know that we are going to be talking about the franchise that is Indiana Jones. Yay.
Was there a question mark on the end of that?
Yeah, Indiana Jones? Question mark. Our job is to entice you to go down side roads and tangents of film that you may not have otherwise, and to broaden your horizons, because hey, who wants to watch the same thing over and over again? Not you, dear listener. That's why you're here. So there is no guest today. It's just Ryan and I spouting our nonsense about Indiana Jones. So I'm going to kick it to you first, Ryan. Your earliest memory of Indiana Jones in your life?
That I actually remember is not even that old of a memory. It's probably just a handful of years ago, rewatching these again as an adult. And then a couple years after that, showing them to my kids, which has been fun. But yeah, I mean, I saw them when I was younger once or twice. These, unfortunately, they don't have the major nostalgia grab that a lot of people around my age and maybe slightly older tend to have, because I kind of missed the boat a little bit. I mean, the third movie came out when I was 2 years old. And so by the time I was like 5 or 6, I was into other things, and the movies at that point weren't, I mean, they were relevant and they were Spielberg, but there was, the world had moved on by the mid 90s at that point. So it's not something that was on, all the time in my house when I was a kid. I definitely saw them a couple times, but nothing where it was, man, I worship at the feet of Indiana Jones like the people that were 10 years older than me.
Huh. So is this going to be like a me episode then? I guess I kind of found that out here. What's funny is I, like yourself, child of the 90s, a little younger child of the 90s than you, but like only by a couple years. Indiana Jones movie had not come out in my lifetime until the fourth one, which is very fun. I can remember my earliest memory with Indiana Jones being the ad that they showed before The Last Crusade on VHS. And it was like this weird Pepsi ad that was like Indiana Jones inspired. And it had, the guy going to the refrigerator and there was a Coke and a Pepsi and he grabbed the Pepsi and you chose wisely. Like all of that. I remember all of that. Like that was a thing that I remember from the VHS for that movie. And I remember watching The Last Crusade a lot because that was my family's favorite, my grandfather's favorite, clearly. Probably because of the Sean Connery of it all. But Indiana Jones is something that, unlike yourself, I do have a fair bit of nostalgia for. However, I have good nostalgia and I have not so good nostalgia because, like I alluded to, I was alive in 2008. I was graduating high school the day after this movie came out, May 22nd, 2008. I saw this movie at midnight, and then I saw it again the same day.
Whew.
Yeah. Boy, we'll talk about our thoughts when we get to it, but that's the kind of person that I am. I was and am a huge fan of Indiana Jones. Maybe not so much recent stuff, but in terms of the character at large and what the character has had done to him in various forms of media, be it books, TV shows, video games, or everything essentially in between. Rides at Disneyland, rides.
That's one I was actually about to bring up. I think that may have been my first introduction to the character itself, because I grew up in Southern California. Not like a rich family, but my grandmother was one that lived fairly close to Disneyland, and as grandparents do, at least once a year or once every 2 years, we'd go to Disneyland, and that ride opened in, I think, 95, and so I definitely rode it in those first couple of years that it was open, and by then I'd probably seen at least one of the films, but the ride's fantastic, always has been.
So I actually have a funny story about the ride. I went to, similarly to yourself, I didn't grow up in Southern California, but my dad did, and his parents lived in Southern California when I was growing up as a kid. And so we would go to Disneyland and we would go to Universal Studios. And when we went to Disneyland, I remember that I was just too short to ride on the ride. This would have been like 96 or 97. We did not go back to Disneyland for a decade almost.
Woo.
So and this is my hand to God, or whomever, she-ever. When I rode on the ride finally as a teenager, I cried at the end because I was like, this was worth it. It was, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
There are plenty of rides in the world where if you're too short to go on it, you're not missing anything. The Indiana Jones ride, if I had been able to go on that as a kid, it would have blown my fucking brain out of the back of my skull, because that ride still does as an adult. Like genuinely, it's still like one of the great, if not like, I think it's in the S tier of great theme park rides, done in a way that like only Disney can really do. I mean, Universal Studios is trying, but Disney is Disney and will always be Disney. And for me, the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland is the quintessential like Disney ride and dark ride as well. It's like nobody has done that ride better since. All of that to say, Indiana Jones is a very important character to me personally. However, I am not without the ability to step out of the bubble of influence and look at it critically and objectively, because, boy, it is in dire need of some critical and, I think, critical reappreciation. I mean, I don't think anybody is sitting and going, oh, Indiana Jones 1's not a great movie. It's widely considered to be one of the greatest movies ever made. So, I mean, that's the thing. Like, this is a franchise where, unlike Star Wars or some of the other things, I don't know if anyone would consider one of the Star Wars movies one of the great movies ever made, but this franchise has one of them. A movie that is considered to be like the pinnacle of the genre that it is in, which is like an action-adventure movie. So Indiana Jones is interesting because, again, in a lot of ways, the genesis of the character comes from Steven Spielberg's love of 40s and 50s serialized entertainment like Flash Gordon, but it also comes from something else that I am personally spending a fair amount of time with Mike White and Richard Hatem, which is James Bond. They wouldn't let Steven Spielberg do a James Bond movie because the whole director's name can't come before James Bond's name in the title crawl is important to people over there at Eon Productions. I understand why. However, not wanting Steven Spielberg to direct a James Bond movie is fucking dumb, period. Why? Like, I get why you don't, but I actually think that the reasons why you would outweigh the don'ts a lot more. Case in point, Indiana Jones, which is part serialized, kind of, again, nostalgia trip for Spielberg, but also it's him saying, fuck you, I want to make a movie with a character that is as well known, as well beloved, and talked about forever like James Bond. Because James Bond's going to be talked about forever. That's been made abundantly clear. Even when he's not out and about, people are still talking about him, wondering when the new one's going to be cast. And Indiana Jones, in a lot of ways, doesn't have the casting problem, thankfully, but it does have that same, like you alluded to, a certain group of people, a certain age swath of people may have even gotten jobs because of Indiana Jones, as in they wanted to become archaeologists because they saw Indiana Jones. That's a thing, obviously. So, I mean, it's a big deal, and I think in a lot of ways Spielberg succeeded in making a character as memorable as James Bond, to the point where they were like, who could be his father? Oh, right. James Bond. So, I mean, it's a kind of, it's eating its own tail, but that's kind of the point. So all that to say, I'm really excited to talk about Indiana Jones.
So let's break it down. We got 5 films in this franchise. First one is out in June of 1981. That's Raiders of the Lost Ark. We've got the second one, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, in May of 1984. The third in the original trilogy, Last Crusade, comes out in May of 1989, 5 years later. And then we get a long break. Another 19 years go by, and then we get Kingdom of the Crystal Skull comes out in May of 2008, followed by 15-year wait for Dial of Destiny to come out in June of 2023. The big thing, the first 4, all directed by Steven Spielberg. Newest one, directed by James Mangold. We've got George Lucas with story by credits on the first 4 films. It's a huge name, obviously, especially for that time. Frank Marshall produced a couple of them.
Larry Kasdan.
Yeah, Larry.
I mean, there's a lot of names in this, like Larry Kasdan, Frank Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy ends up being involved in the last one. Yeah.
It's a big, big deal. Obviously, Harrison Ford is the biggest part of all of these. Karen Allen is a big part. We got John Rhys Davies. Man, I was watching the first one again this morning, and yeah, he's a big part of that movie. Kate Capshaw's in these. Ki Kwan. Obviously, this was a big story surrounding the 2022 Oscars, of course. Sean Connery comes in, does great as Indy's dad. And then Shia LaBeouf and Cate Blanchett come onto the scene for the 4th movie. Chris is real stoked to talk about those people.
I will actually tell you that my feelings on his character in the 4th movie have changed significantly based on the 5th movie.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, I'll just have a hot take right here for all you hot take lovers. I think Indiana Jones 4 has aged a hell of a lot better in light of the 5th movie coming out and kind of just being a dud of a movie in a way. Like, it's not, we'll talk about it. I mean, I don't think it's going to be either of our answers anywhere. So I think now might be as just a good a time as any to bring it up. The newest movie, they spent 15 years making that movie. Doesn't feel like it. If this is what we get after 15 years, it's kind of a bummer is what I'm getting at. It's one of those things where maybe we were a little too long in the tooth. Maybe 2015 is the latest we should have made another one of these movies, is what I'm getting at. Because there are a lot of a lot of shortcuts and narrative crutches that are used in the Dial of Destiny that are very apparent the moment someone points them out to you. Let's just put it that way.
That 5th movie, Dial of Destiny, had Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Toby Jones, Mads Mikkelsen, all with fairly big parts in it. But yeah, that's the bulk of the franchise. Fair warning, if you've genuinely never seen any of these, this episode might get a little more into spoilers compared to some of our other episodes, because when you're talking about some of the franchises, there might be a couple nuggets that we throw out there. However, I would say this is probably one of those franchises that I don't really think spoilers can ruin the experience of this franchise at all.
No, and in this day and age, I mean, so many of the things in Indiana Jones have kind of become woven into the pop culture, the pop culture tapestry that is being ever weaved by content creators and filmmakers and TV showrunners. I mean, if you look at the pop culture tapestry and you were to take a step back, Indiana Jones has a very big part at a very big time. Has it tapered off now? Sure, but that's the way these kinds of things go. Not everything is evergreen. Holy shit, for 20 years, Star Wars wasn't evergreen. Like, for a time there in the 90s, Star Wars was not a fucking thing. Like, they had to remaster the movies and do the special editions, and then we got the prequels. But there was a time where Star Wars was just, that was a movie that came out in the 80s.
Yep.
You're a fucking nerd and a weirdo if you like it. Now it's like, you've never seen Star Wars? My God. Like, that was not a thing in the 90s. Nobody cared. Not like they care now, not as ubiquitous as it is now, obviously. And that's the thing. I mean, same with Indiana Jones. Like, Indiana Jones, third movie came out in 89. People wanted a fourth movie. I always bring up this Entertainment Weekly I had in the 90s, early 2000s, that had a bunch of movies in development hell, and that was the big one. The big one was Indiana Jones 4. I'm trying to remember. Indiana Jones 4 was a big one, and there were, like, I think Blade Runner 2 was a big one. There were a couple of these, like, big movies that, again, I want to remember. If someone in the audience remembers this issue and can point me at it, so I bring it up all the time, because I would like to go back in there and see how many of those movies ended up getting fucking made. Because it is 2024. Indiana Jones 5 got made last year. I was reading that when I was a child in the 90s. And it actually, not only did it happen, not only did the movie that was in development hell happen, another one happened. But that second one was even in bigger development hell for 15 more years on top of everything else. So it's absolutely insane, because on top of, I think, the influence of Indiana Jones, maybe not as evergreen as Star Wars is now. And I think Indiana Jones has kind of always been a secondary franchise to Star Wars, kind of like the sister franchise to Star Wars in a lot of ways. Because I think Indiana Jones has not less mainstream appeal, but it is appealing to a different audience, theoretically. I think if you like Star Wars, obviously you should check out Indiana Jones. But Indiana Jones is a franchise that has a certain amount of longevity to it that I think everyone is surprised by, myself included. I do think, again, they've overstepped the longevity range at this point, clearly, but it's weird to me that in 2023, we have had 5 Indiana Jones movies, 2 came out in the last 30 years, and there will be now no more. So this is kind of, we're doing this because we know there's nothing else. They've said as much. Harrison Ford said he will not be portraying the character again, which, good.
We'll get into why that's a good thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, boy, won't we?
Anything else on the history you want to throw out there before we start?
If you're interested in hearing the creative process behind the writing of Raiders of the Lost Ark, over on the projection booth, Mike White, author Andy Rausch, and I did a table read of the Kasdan, Spielberg, and Lucas research sessions and kind of brainstorming sessions. And so I played George Lucas, who ended up having the bulk majority of the speaking, to the point where I was speaking like pages of dialogue, these like long fucking diatribes for a page. It's just me talking and them sitting there like listening to me do a George Lucas. I would say if you're interested in the history behind Indiana Jones, you could and should check that out. It's interesting to see how some of the things that they were thinking about in the first movie that they wanted to do don't show up in the first movie, but they show up in the second one, or they show up in the third one. And it's like, oh man, you're getting to see them kind of, it's like that Beatles documentary that Peter Jackson did a couple years ago, where it's like just seeing the creative process, and you're sitting there watching Paul McCartney just riffing on the guitar, and then you hear one note, and then you hear another note, and you can hear him putting it together right there, and then all of a sudden, it's like he just created one of the greatest songs ever, just fucking sitting there. That's how that felt, listening and participating in that, is like these 3 guys sitting in this room talking about how, like, these ideas that they're Indiana Smith, Indiana Jones, this girl's 14, that's a little problematic, Steve. Or George. I think George is the one who's talking about him having sex with like a 15-year-old, which is not great. Like, they even say it and they're like, maybe we shouldn't do that. It's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't. But getting to see that creative process is so wild, because they didn't know at the time that 2 guys in 2024 or 3 guys in 2022 would be spending time rereading and, kind of giving our voice to their voice to be part of that process. But it's interesting, to say the least, because again, for how iconic so many parts of these movies are, to just be like, oh, maybe they should fight next to a flying wing, like, and then it fucking happens. Like, I don't know. For me, that's a little peek behind the curtain that we don't really get with a lot of things, and especially things this high profile as Raiders of the Lost Ark or the Indiana Jones franchise writ large.
All right. Well, that means it's time for our first question. So, what is the foundational film for Indiana Jones, Chris?
I'm wondering if your answer and my answer are the same here, because there's kind of this, I have this kind of push and pull tug of war going on in my head before I answer, and I'll tell you why. I know which of these 5 movies is the one that you should tell anyone to watch for good reason. I'm not going to say which one, but I think everybody and their mother who have seen these movies can agree there's probably one here that is the one you should start with, and I get why. I would concede that it is probably the perfect movie of the bunch. It's the one that is the movie that is in the film archive for a reason.
Right.
However, I think that, and this, like I said, this might ruffle some feathers, and I'm okay with that. I'll be that guy this episode, and I've said it plenty of other places before, so this will not come as a shock to anyone who has followed the things that I work on and the content that I create. I think, just to be a chronological troll, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is my answer here for a couple reasons. A, it technically comes before all the other movies. It is a prequel film. B, I think it does something interesting with the character, and if you were to watch it first, you would actually see kind of a character arc with Indiana Jones, because we're kind of seeing it in reverse in these movies, because we see Temple second, but it's a prequel, and so we don't understand why he's kind of more of a dick in Temple of Doom and than he is in Raiders. He's kind of mellowed out a little bit in Raiders, and then by Last Crusade, he's completely mellowed out. I think that for me, if you are to watch Indiana Jones, the starting place to start is Temple of Doom. I think it has a perfectly suitable way to introduce the character to people that have never seen him before. I think the opening set piece is still amazing. The movie, it goes directly to the kinds of movies that are being inspired by. So read that as kind of high adventures in exotic places. Not saying Raiders doesn't do that, but Raiders goes to Egypt. So it's like most of that movie is spent in tombs underground, really,
Yeah.
like for the most part. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is kind of all over the place. I mean, we have all sorts of things happening. And I think, yes, is it a darker movie? Sure. But I think the darkness of the movie comes from Indiana Jones as a character being played a little differently, a little more gruff than he is in Raiders, which allows that movie's tone to kind of adapt to that. Ke Quan is in it, obviously. He's amazing. Kate Capshaw is in it. She's amazing. She's playing that character perfectly. You might be annoyed by the character, but that is the intent of the character. It's like my issue with Sharon Stone in Casino. I don't like her in Casino. Well, then she's doing her job.
Exactly.
And Kate Capshaw is doing her job as Willie Scott. I love Willie Scott. I love Short Round. I love Indiana Jones. I love all the characters. Mola Ram is, he's not maybe my favorite villain, but he's the perfect villain for that movie. And Amrish Puri is an amazing Indian actor. Is it a little on brand that I picked the Indian movie? Maybe. But I loved Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom long before I watched a single celluloid frame of Indian cinema. I had a poster of it hanging in my room of my parents' house my entire childhood of Temple of Doom, the Drew Struzan one, not Raiders, not Last Crusade, Temple of Doom. And I still stand by it. It's my favorite. I think it's just as good as the other 3. And I think that, again, if you're going to watch these movies and you've never seen them before, you get a little bit of a different flavor with Temple that I think is interesting to then pair it to go into Raiders. If you watch them in that order, you actually get to see a character arc of Indiana Jones, kind of softening who he is. Because by the end of Temple, you're like, oh, wow, like this guy has a kid sidekick. He's actually charmed the woman who found him to be detestable. And he saved a village of children. Ultimately, Temple of Doom is about saving a village of children from, the thuggy cult. So is this my impassioned plea for people to take Temple of Doom more seriously? I don't really care if you take it seriously or not. It is ultimately a big, fun, dumb movie. But this will rattle some people. But I think Temple of Doom is the foundational title. But I'm not going to sit here and say I don't understand why Raiders of the Lost Ark is a perfect movie, because I do. I'm saying that in knowing that that is the case as well. I get it. So that's my answer. Ryan, thoughts?
A few. One, Temple of Doom is, I think, either the best or like tied with the best. I actually like this and Last Crusade more than Raiders of the Lost Ark myself. I've watched them both more than Raiders. And nothing against Raiders. I think Raiders is a great film to establish the character. And I'm going to talk about Raiders in a second because, spoiler, that's my choice for this one. But what I would say is, as we are discussing this with a listening audience that potentially has never seen an Indiana Jones movie, Temple of Doom kind of, to me at least, doesn't establish the character in the way that introduces you to the rest of the franchise. Like you said, it is a bit of an outlier film. Like the archaeology hardly plays a part in this movie at all. Yeah. I don't think there's any scenes of him at his university, which is kind of a big part of him. And then the big thing is there's no like overarching negative political force that he's fighting in this one. It's just sort of fun adventures, which is great. Personally, I think that makes it a better movie. However,
it's the only one where he doesn't. Literally, right. Look at all of them. This is the only one where it's not the Nazis or Russians standing in as Nazis.
Right. So that's what I'm getting at. Is I feel like this wouldn't give the best intro to the franchise itself to somebody that's never seen any of them, because it is just a different take on the character. And again, it's not bad. I think, again, it might be my favorite of the entire franchise. This and Last Crusade are pretty damn close to me.
I have a question, theoretical.
Yeah.
So you said it, right? What if someone had never seen these? So we have a blank slate. What order would you tell them to watch these movies in? And again, because like you just said, you have admitted, and I would 100% agree, that is not what Indiana Jones is known for. However, if the first movie is the prequel, which is doing things that he doesn't do anywhere else, and everything else is where he's doing those things, it almost feels like, why would you have them watch it anywhere other than at the beginning?
It's
also part and parcel. You said it, like all the other things are Nazis or Russians or, state government type things. This is not that. This is the only one where it's Indiana Jones versus just like a death cult, really.
I'm a big fan of not putting your best foot forward for something like this. So if somebody's saying, I am agreeing right now to watch all 5 of them, I would probably go Raiders, Crystal Skull, and then Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, and then Dial of Destiny. I feel like Dial of Destiny kind of has to come last just because of the whole storyline of it all.
So you're throwing it out of chronological order just because?
Yeah, because to me, like, the second movie is a prequel. It was already screwed up anyway, so that doesn't matter that much. So what I'm getting at is, as quality-wise, I don't want somebody to watch the best movies first and then immediately like, oh, everything else after this is shit.
Oh, I see what you mean. And that's the thing. I think if it were me, I would do 2. It would just be changing the position of 2. It'd be 2, 1, 3, 4, 5. Because look, 2, you get the introduction to the character. He's not the character that we are really introduced to in Raiders. And then you go right into Raiders. You see that now he is a professor. He's doing this professionally. He's maybe hung up the mantle of being the guy going out all the time, but he does become an expert for the government who then volunteers to go out. Similarly into Last Crusade and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think Temple of Doom has to be watched. I think Temple of Doom should have come out first. I just don't think Indiana Jones would be the franchise that it is now if it had come out first. That's the problem. That's the problem with the movie. That's why it's a prequel film made second. I mean, that's the thing people tend to forget. It's a prequel film. It takes place before Raiders. He's a younger Indiana Jones. And that's how they get away with some of the more unique and distinct choices that they make. But yeah, I mean, again, I am a person who is 100% willing and able to say, look, objectively, Raiders of the Lost Ark is a perfect movie. It is a movie that has some of the greatest stunt work ever done in a big budget studio film. It has Harrison Ford at peak Harrison Ford. It is the movie where he fights the Nazis and they melt. We just talked about it on our Melt episode. Like, it's an iconic film for a reason. If you know Indiana Jones, you know Raiders of the Lost Ark and maybe nothing else. And I think that is important, but that is not my favorite one, and that I don't think is the foundational one if you're talking about watching these now in 2024. As a contemporary viewer, I'm saying that because that's the only people that I can tell to watch this now.
Of course.
Are contemporary viewers. Like, I can't go, well, if you were around in 81, of course Raiders first. Like, well, Raiders is the only thing. That's the, hindsight thing. Like, hindsight right now, they probably wish they could have made 7 Indiana Jones movies from 1981 to 1998. Do you know what I mean? Like, now the way things are, they probably wish they didn't have to wait 20 years or 15 years in between each one.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was getting at. I don't want it to blow its load early, basically, and be like, here's the best movies, and now everything else is just going to feel like it's trying to live up to that. And I bet for some people that loved Raiders when it came out, they kind of feel that already, because I know a lot of people look at Temple and Last Crusade as lesser, but I don't personally.
They're not.
I would definitely go show somebody Raiders brand new to say, this is Indiana Jones. This is what he's like in most of the movies. And then then go to Crystal Skull and be like, well, this is like the redheaded stepchild that came out, and we'll talk about it. It's kind of similar, whatever. And then you go into like, but this is the magic for a couple. And then also at the end, we're gonna have a little epilogue that's a little bit of a letdown. But hey, it's part of the story. So
I think it's weird you're putting Crystal Skull up second, but I get what you're getting at in terms of, and I think, again, like we've kind of alluded to, the idea here that there is a universe where we could get someone who's never seen these movies, never heard of them, to sit in a room and watch them. Get one person to watch them your way, get one person to watch them my way, and get one person to watch them another way, because I'm sure there's someone out there screaming right now, well, I would do it. Okay. I mean, and that's the thing. I would love to know if it even affects your ability to enjoy the movie. Because I
don't think it does.
I don't think so either. But at the same time, I wonder what would be more fulfilling as an audience member. Would it be to see young Indy transition into the person he is now, or just to kind of have it set out to me so that I don't have all of the quality things up front? Because that's the thing. Yeah. There are plenty of people that don't even like anything past Raiders. It's like, I get it. Raiders is a great movie. Raiders is a perfect movie. It's up there with films that, like Silence of the Lambs, like Casablanca, like movies that are important to us as a Western culture. Genuinely.
You went super into detail in Temple of Doom. Why don't we do the same for Raiders, since Raiders is going to be my pick here?
Yeah, sure.
Raiders is the first movie in the franchise. We don't know anything about it. And man, this movie, first off, iconic. You were talking about it earlier. Like, there's so many things from this franchise as a whole that is iconic. But this movie, like within like the first 5 or 6 minutes, you've already got the gold transfer scene. You've already got the giant boulder. There's so many things.
The golden idol.
Literally immediately in this movie that will just be burned into your brain. And so, this is easily the most iconic of the franchise by far. Great movie, acted really well. I think Karen Allen is pretty good in this. I think that the whole fighting Nazis thing is A good call, especially for the time that it's set in. Obviously, it's set in the late 30s, 1936. He is this college professor. He is somebody that's globetrotting around trying to rescue things, and it really delivers on who this character is going to be for the entire franchise.
Yeah. I mean, look, here's the reality of something like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, every single frame of that movie, for the most part, has something iconic or something about it that, like, again, it's in a lot of ways, and I've said this before about other people, and I'll say it here about Spielberg. If Raiders was the only movie you made as a filmmaker, you'd be like fucking on cloud nine. But the fact that this man has made that and Jaws and all the other Indiana Jones movies aside from the last one, and Schindler's List, and Save It, like Stevens, and this is early. He's just getting his footing as a director,
Right.
And he makes one of the preeminent like American action adventure films of ever, and to the point where this character is known worldwide, I would assume, based off of this movie. And you didn't mention, I think this movie has the second best villain in the series, with Renee Belloc, played by Paul Freeman, otherwise known as Ivan Ooze, for all you 90s kids out there. He's amazing. He gets his just deserved, and he is introduced in the first 10 minutes of the movie as well, which is really smart, because I don't think in the other two, you're not introduced to the main villain of the movie in the kind of cold open, as it were.
Right.
And that's the other thing. I mean, again, very Indiana Jones, very Indiana Jones. Yes, it is Indiana Jones. Very James Bond-like. These movies are not sequels. I mean, they're sequels, but they're not a continuing story, as it were. Like Raiders of the Lost Ark, self-contained story. Temple of Doom, self-contained story. Last Crusade, self-contained story. Crystal Skull, self-contained story. The last one, it tries to do something a little different, and I'm not sure how much it succeeds. But that's the other thing. Technically, you can just watch these movies in whatever fucking order you want, because they're all self-contained. It's not a sequel. It's just another adventure in the life of Indiana Jones. So it feels very James Bondy, feels very Mad Maxy. Like, it's just the character is the important thing. There will be other characters that come back. I mean, they made a big deal about bringing Karen Allen back for the new movies. Okay, but like, I don't have nostalgia for her the same way I do for Kate Capshaw. And it's like, and where did that come from? Because Raiders of the Lost Ark is the iconic movie. That's why. It has the iconography of Indiana Jones in the way that most people like the iconography of Indiana Jones.
I agree. There's a lot in this first movie that is going to be relied upon for, I mean, at this point, decades. They're setting up the lore of a character that you're going to be hearing about all the way up through 2023, which is a lot. We probably should mention, and I don't think you and I have ever talked about it before. How do you feel about the young Indiana Jones?
The Sean Patrick Flannery stuff?
Yeah.
I think if you want to see Indiana Jones fight Vlad the Impaler as Dracula, that's where you can go and do it. It's a weird show in terms of when it came out, because it feels so much more like a thing that should be coming out now. Like that, right? Like if they hadn't done it then, now they could just be like, we're just going to do a young Indiana Jones thing. Like you could see that. They kind of, speaking of blowing their load, they blew their load on that way too early. Like way too early. Because, I mean, you would have been able to get away with the thing that they never have wanted to do, which is recast the role. Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones, and that is part and parcel to all of this. But what's interesting is that show is the only time he's ever been recast outside of River Phoenix. And I guess there is probably there is another actor who plays Indiana Jones in the show when they like flash forward, and it's like Grandpa Indiana Jones, and he's like missing an eye and has like missing a leg, which I don't think is canon anymore. I've got to assume at this point, or maybe it is, I don't know. But that show, I think, came out way too early, and I think in terms of it being something worth checking out, if you can find it easily, which maybe you could clue me in if there's like a Kino release or something.
I'm not sure of that. I don't think there is anything, not anything modern at least.
Because they had a DVD box set at one point. And they also had it on VHS because I had it on VHS as a kid growing up because the episode of Vlad the Impaler scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, you can still get it. It's that DVD set's only like $33 on Amazon.
It's a good pickup if you like Indiana Jones and you've never seen it. It's Indiana Jones Light, Sean Patrick Flannery. I mean, he's believable enough as Indiana Jones. I wouldn't say like he's the best person that they could have cast, but
right,
he's fine. I think it introduced him to a wider world. I got no problem with it. I used to watch it a lot growing up. Like I said, that episode of Vlad the Impaler scared the shit out of me. What about you? You a fan?
I've only watched it once. I don't have great detailed memories of it. I remember liking it enough. But also it just felt like maybe a little more my speed at the time rather than Raiders. I'm not at all saying that the quality was higher. It was just, I was literally a child.
Right. He like interacts with historical figures and people through, and that was always kind of fun. I always found that kind of fun. It was a little like Forrest Gumpy, where it's like, oh, he's running into all these really famous people, and he's talking to T.L. Lawrence, and it's like, okay, like fine, like cool. Like I said, Vlad the Impaler, like literally Vlad the Impaler fights Indiana Jones. Okay, and like for me, honestly, and this is probably the sad thing. And that'll probably be the answer to the third question. Like, there's more non-mainline stuff of Indiana Jones that's way better than even the good stuff that the movies have made. But that's a discussion further along the road.
Well, I am very eager to get to that point. So let's go through our second question. What is the secret hidden gem for this franchise for you? One that may not be the great to show somebody first, but you think is still an amazing movie.
Can I have you answer first?
Yeah, of course.
I want to see if I have to change my answer or not.
I mean, I'm gonna say Last Crusade since we've talked about the other two. This movie, I mean, first of all, I like puzzles and stuff, so this fits squarely.
X rarely marks the spot, Ryan. X rarely marks the spot.
Yeah, this just scratches a lot of those itches. Like, you still get a lot of the same characters. You get the introduction to Connery as the dad. You get that fun chemistry, which really works. Harrison Ford and Sean Connery together, the chemistry is perfect.
So good.
It's genuinely, I don't think anybody else could have been a better dad for him. But like the whole journey for the Holy Grail it's another one of those, like, I hate to just overuse the word again and again, but it's so incredibly iconic. Everything is, everybody has seen these scenes hundreds of times, and you may not have even seen the movie, but you've probably seen the scenes in, a flourish before a film or some sort of trailer or YouTube, some sort of, I don't know, highlight reel of something. Like, this is the type of thing that people look back on and go, yeah, this is iconic from this movie. We're going to do it to highlight Lucas or Spielberg or Ford or whoever you're going to talk about. And the movie is great. Like, there's other scenes in the beginning of this that are very, very just peak Indiana Jones. The second and third movie for me is like one continuous, just great time. They're both full of adventure, both full of exciting stories, and just so well made. The movies are great. My big thing that I take away from these that I miss in so much of modern cinema, that they go somewhere and film. That this is not just done in a giant room in London or some small town in Canada because they're getting a tax break. They're going to a fucking jungle to film a lot of this. They're by real waterfalls. They're in some random ass temple set that they built close to where they're in the jungle. Like, there's so much of this that is on site, and they put real money in, like that sort of thing. We don't get that anymore. Screen shit, and it hurts. It hurts every aspect of this process. Everything looks cheaper. Everything looks sad. Everything looks small. Everything looks fake.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
Because it is.
Yeah, I've heard the criticism that I have heard leveled against Last Crusade is that it is too jokey and it is too funny of a movie. I mean, yes, I think it is more comedic than the first two, but at the same time, like, one of the most iconic moments in Indiana Jones is a funny bit. It's the Cairo swordsman. I mean, that's a funny gag. That's well known. Like, if you don't think Indiana Jones has some level of humor in it, you've never seen the franchise. Like, for someone to say Last Crusade is the jokey one, it's like, it wasn't a comedy. It just had more one-liners because you have like one of the king of one-liners from back in the day, Sean Connery. You know, shocking. Like, I mean, that's all. I mean, that's James Bond right there. So are we really surprised that there's more of that dynamic? No, no ticket. I mean, again, Indiana Jones didn't necessarily have like a catchphrase, but in Last Crusade, we kind of get some, like no ticket or X rarely marks the spot. Like those are iconic lines because of that movie kind of not having the tone. It doesn't have the tone of the second movie. For the most part, until you get to the end and there's like the heightened stakes of like people are dying and stuff like that. But it has more of the tone of the first movie.
It's kind of the cool thing though, is when you look at the first half and the second half, it kind of has like Lost Ark and
Temple of Doom
and Temple kind of blended.
Yeah,
a little bit.
The whole tank scene out before they get into Petra. Yeah, is pretty much just like it's a bigger budget version. I don't think done as well as the one in Raiders. I think Raiders has one of the greatest stunt set pieces in film history. The truck chase at the climax of the movie, but it's one of the many climaxes of the film.
Yeah,
that is one of the, and still like a great practical stunt effect that. Every time I watch it, I'm like, that looks so dangerous, man. And it was, but it was being done, again, safely as they could. And yet, to your point, Last Crusade, second act of the movie is a little Temple of Doom, a little Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think the first half of Last Crusade is pretty damn great. I think that whole movie is great. I think, I think that Last Crusade is the one that I've seen the most, because it was the one that, like I said, my grandfather gravitated towards. I don't know why. I mean, other than the whole Sean Connery of it, I gotta assume. But I love Last Crusade. I love them all equally. I mean, and maybe I don't love Raiders as much as I love the other ones, but that's like because everybody else loves Raiders enough. I don't feel like I have to. You know what I mean? Like everybody else can sing the praise. Like everybody and their mother will sing the praises of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't have to do that for the movie, like at all. There are plenty of other people who have been doing it for longer than I've been alive. And those people are right, because we got 4 other movies from that series.
You sound like a reverse hipster.
It's
I wasn't there first. You can love it.
Yeah, like whatever. Like in my mind, like I don't, if you saw it when you were 10 years old in the 80s, like, fuck, I can't blame you for thinking it's like the greatest thing you've ever seen. And you might still feel that way. And like you said, you said it, you kind of passed over it. Like people didn't know that they were getting the best movie in the series right out of the gate. Right. And so the response to Temple of Doom, the response to Last Crusade, the response to all of the movies is, it's unfortunate that they're all just not Raiders, huh? Right? It's like the sad thing about every Indiana Jones movie post Raiders is that they're just not Raiders, because that's what people wanted, was just more of Raiders. And I get it. But if not for the fact that Spielberg was going through a divorce and Lucas kind of stepped back, we wouldn't have Temple of Doom or Last Crusade. So
right.
Last Crusade's a good one. Yeah. I think Last Crusade has the best villain in the series. Julian Glover playing the most realistic of the villains in the movies.
Yeah, he's up there. Freeman in the first one is really great.
But again, like that's the thing. Like, yeah, like not discounting the first movie, but if we just set the first movie up on a shelf, right, and we say like everything about the movie is perfect, it's a perfect movie. So if we were to answer, the perfect villain for Indiana Jones, of course, is just dark Indiana Jones, right? Like, he's just Indiana Jones' shadow. He does the thing Indiana Jones won't do. Last Crusade, I like the idea of an American businessman selling his soul to the Nazis for eternal youth. Like, that is a interesting character. And he's irredeemable to the last moment. And he's an idiot, which is even better. Which again speaks to the idea of the tech bros and people like that now, people who will go and do and say things and throw their money at things just because they can, and sometimes the things that they're choosing to throw their money behind aren't great. In this movie's case, Nazis. In real life case, Nazis.
Nazis.
And also the I forget what his name is. He's the commander, the guy who Indiana Jones fights on top of the tank.
Yep.
None of the other movies really have a secondary villain that Indiana Jones fights with.
Like a major henchman.
Well, they have Tote in the first movie, but he's not a physical threat. Like, he burns his hand on a medallion, and then Indy and him never interact again. In Last Crusade, that tank fight, while that might not be as thrilling as the truck chase, it's thrilling in a different way. And fight on top of the tank and that whole tank chase is great. But for the most part, it's played for laughs. Like, a lot of the things are like, and he sticks a rock in the thing and it blows up. And he shoots the gun and it shoots through 5 people. Like, all of it's like a gag. It's like sight gags galore. So, yeah, I'm glad you picked Last Crusade so that I don't have to.
Well, then let's hear yours.
Oh God, this is where I have to do a thing I never thought I would
talk
do.
About Crystal Skull and how to defend it.
Yeah, you're right. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if you are not wanting to start at the places that Ryan and I have given you 1 or 2, or watching 3, 4, I think now in retrospect, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I loved this movie when it came out. I've done an episode on this movie recently in the last couple years on the Culture Cast. So I've been kind of preparing myself for this because I already did it there a little bit. I didn't like this movie when it came out. I saw it the night it came out at midnight. I saw it the next day at like 3 p.m. when I was out of school. So I saw this movie twice in one day. You would think that I love this film. I don't hate this film as much as I used to. I used to really, I don't know what the word is, shudder to think about having to watch the movie or people taking it seriously in the scope and scheme of the other 3 movies at the time. Look, I think the problem with Crystal Skull is that it's a movie about aliens, which doesn't really feel like an Indiana Jones thing. Indiana Jones was always religious adjacent, and introducing straight up goddamn aliens it's a bit of a leap, I will say. I think Crystal Skull also suffers from, at the time, an overusage of CGI and over reliance on CGI. We'll fix it in post, or these entire scenes are prevised. Look, I don't have any problem with practical effects or CGI effects. Like, I don't any more than you do. I just think that when you forego using practical effects because digital is easier, you can tell, you should use digital to fill in the gaps of the practical. Don't just do things, we're going to do this in a studio soundstage.
It's a tool.
And so it's used as a crutch, less as a tool. And Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is kind of not an offender, like a repeat offender. It is an offender of like not great CGI, I will say, but a lot of it is still being done practically. Harrison Ford is still able to do the thing. He still is whipping around, flying around, fist fighting people, doing the Indiana Jones thing that we expect from Indiana Jones. Do I like what the MacGuffin is at the center of the movie? I like it the least of... No, I don't like it the least of all of them. I like it second least. The least one being Dial of Destiny. I think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in retrospect has aged better because Dial of Destiny was such a disappointment. And to look back on it, it's like, well, at least that was directed by Spielberg. At least the first half of the movie, 2/3, is pretty fun. I'll even say, you know, as someone who will have to come around on Shia LaBeouf because you are my friend and I owe it to you to listen to your impassioned plea about Shia LaBeouf and why I may be misconstruing him as someone who was only in Transformers movies, even though he was in Transformers movies, just like Robert Pattinson was in Twilight. I have to remember that. I have to remind myself of that. As much as I'm not a fan of Shia LaBeouf, he's actually not bad in this movie. Now, is he Indiana Jones's son? He's not the most egregious choice. There could have been a lot weirder people they could have picked, a lot less charming and charismatic people. I think Shia LaBeouf at the time, people thought he was going to be the next big thing, and Shia LaBeouf is not the next big thing of his own choice. He's a very complex person, clearly, who has dealt with a lot of things. Look, I wasn't a child actor. You weren't a child actor. I can't pretend to know what it's like to have been on Even Stevens as a child and have my entire life under a microscope because, oh, you're a child actor, which means now we have to focus on the fact that you're probably going to be a fucked up adult. And look, Shia LaBeouf was dealing with stuff long before Even Stevens. I mean, his upbringing and everything, like, not great. Like, not a great relationship with his parents. And this is all publicly known stuff. This is not me espousing or, you know, making a fucking assumption. He's talked about it. He made a movie about it, more or less.
Sure did.
So all of that to say, I don't find him to be as much of an affront to my good senses as he was when I originally saw the movie. Because when I originally saw it in 2008, this is like Transformers Shia LaBeouf. That's the mindset I put myself in to get there. I think that the first 2/3 of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull are actually pretty good. Are they the best? Are they the best Indiana Jones movie? I would say the first 2/3 of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull are as good as a lot of Last Crusade. Now, is it as funny or as well written as Last Crusade? No, but in terms of it being like action adventure, high stakes, I mean, we have a pretty entertaining chase through the Amazon rainforest. It's a little CGI heavy. Looking at you, Shia LaBeouf, swinging with monkeys on vines through the trees.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, I find Kingdom of the Crystal Skull kind of a charming failure. It's a weird failure. I mean, Dial of Destiny fails because it just tries to, well, we'll talk about it when we get there. But Dial of Destiny is a very different movie from all four of these other movies. I think that's the thing. At the end of the day, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull still feels like an Indiana Jones movie. Be it because Spielberg directed it, be it because Indiana Jones, played by Harrison Ford, can actually move and do things, be it because, again, it's still close to being Ark of the Covenant or Holy Grail or Shankara Stones. Like,
Right.
it is kind of close. I mean, again, the aliens don't... maybe I'd feel differently if the aliens never showed up, right? You know, because there's the other thing. The aliens show up in, like, the last 2 minutes of the movie. And then there's a spaceship and it flies away and it's like, oh, so it was aliens. Up until that point, it's just kind of an Indiana Jones adventure. They're running around in the rainforest. There's a couple set pieces that are pretty interesting that the one where it's kind of the tower that leads down into where the aliens are, where there's sand coming out and stuff. Like, that's a pretty interesting set piece. But look, I get it. People had waited 19 years to see Indiana Jones again. And the people that were really disappointed were the people older than us. Like,
Right.
our Gen Xer friends are the ones that were really disappointed. They were the ones who made their episode of South Park about how George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were sexually assaulting Indiana Jones, and them saying that was their childhood. I think, not to diminish the use of the word, but I believe they said, you're raping our childhood, is what they said.
Cool.
Right. And it's like, you still have the original 3 movies. Chill the fuck out.
Right.
Like, chill the fuck out. And if anything, it makes you appreciate those first 3 movies that much more, like, at the end of the day, because the 5th movie has made me appreciate the 4th movie that much more. So that's my impassioned plea. It is not a bad movie. I think it is a misguided movie. I think it makes some choices that don't necessarily hang with Indiana Jones as a franchise that we've seen. Even in the extended fiction, he has not really engaged with aliens. They have all been like pseudo-religious or religious things that he's engaged with, not actual aliens.
Gotta point out that in this entire impassioned review of Crystal Skull, we didn't talk about the fridge scene at all. And that's what everybody complains about this damn movie. Watching that again, how do you feel about that scene?
So what's funny is, have you watched the TV show Fallout yet?
Nope.
There's a scene in Fallout that feels like somebody was like, but see, that is the truth. Because a character crawls out of a lead-lined refrigerator and survives a nuke being dropped in a city because they're in a refrigerator. And I couldn't help think to myself, like, is this them saying that Crystal Skull was right? It's not that he's in a refrigerator that's the problem for me. It's that we watched the refrigerator turn whatever would have been inside it to mush because it flies at like 100 miles an hour, bouncing around. Like, he'd be dead, not because of the radiation, but because he'd be like a literal puddle of broken bones and skin in that. He's not like strapped in. He doesn't have like any sort of protection. He's in a fucking metal box being thrown by a nuke. What do you think is going to
shaking?
Yeah, he'd get out and he's just like would stand up and all of his bones are just broken, so he's just like on the ground. Like, you ever seen someone put a brick into a blender and turn it on? It's like that. The thing bounces around a lot and eventually it'll break it down. That nuking the fridge thing, look, that's just another, I'm not going to classify an entire group of people, but if they're horror bros and they're action movie man babies, and that is a big complaint, I don't like to nuke the fridge. Fucking, it's one part of the movie. You gotta get hung up on that for like if that's what you want to get hung up on, cool. I don't really want to have a conversation with you because you're not interested in talking about anything conductive to having an interesting conversation. You just want to focus on some stupid shit that is stupid. I'll agree it's stupid. You'll agree it's stupid. It was a dumb decision. It's cool. I mean, the thing that is cool, I will say, is that shot of Indiana Jones with the mushroom cloud in the background when he steps out of the fridge. That is a well done shot that has some nice iconography to it. But yeah, I get it. The fridge thing, yeah, it's dumb. I agree. Move on. That's my point. It's like the Blade Runner thing. Like, is Deckard a replicant? I don't fucking care. Move on. Like, let's talk about something else. There's got to be something else in this 2-hour movie that we could talk about other than the nuking of the fridge. Like, fucking come on, guys. That is such a pedantic and infantile way of looking at movies where it's like, I'm just going to focus on this one thing. And that one thing makes the whole movie bad. Like, oh God, really? Really? Come on.
Speaking of having more to talk about.
Oh dear.
Let's now move our attention to the Dial of Destiny. And this movie comes out in 2023, directed by James Mangold. And first off, this movie is 2.5 hours long.
Boy, is it.
I just watched this for the first time a couple weeks ago. It does not feel 2.5 hours long. This movie feels like it's about 7 hours long. This movie plods at a snail's pace, primarily because they coddle Harrison Ford for the entire film. He is relegated to sitting in the backseat of cars or being locked to random ass vehicles or a train or whatever because he just can't get up and run anymore or anything like that. So, man, this movie, this was a chore to watch. This was the first out of the 5 films that I wanted to not finish.
I saw it in theaters. I know people that like this movie. I don't get it. It's so sad to have to talk about this movie. A, because this movie exists and we have to talk about it at all. I'm not saying that because the movie's like some sort of like cinematic abortion. I'm saying that only because I kind of, if this is what we were going to get after 15 years, we don't
scrap it.
Yeah, we don't need it. Like, you didn't, at the end of the day, the way this movie ends is no different than the way Crystal Skull ends. Other than the fact that characters from that last movie are killed off screen, which is just the laziest shit possible. And on top of everything else, I really wish that this movie had come out 2 years after the fact, because then Ke Huy Quan would have been in the movie. Short Round would have been in the movie. There's no way he wouldn't have been in the movie. And then the movie would have been an interesting kind of, not coming of age, but winding down of age story, because you could have him being, just think about the dynamic between him still younger and him now older, right? Like those scenes write themselves. And he could even, and you know what? You could have even had it where Mutt, Shia LaBeouf's character, let's just say he's not in Dial of Destiny. Guess how much you could have mined a relationship between Indy and Ke Huy Quan as the son he didn't get a chance to say the things he wanted to and raise the way he wanted to. And that dynamic would possibly be beautiful, frankly, if you got it there, because James Mangold can make a good movie. They didn't hire him to do Dial of Destiny because he's a fucking clown. They hired him because he makes compelling cinema. I'm not the biggest fan of Logan, but fucking everybody else is, I know, so that's fine. I mean, look, I'm a huge fan of his version of 3:10 to Yuma. Walk the Line is obviously a movie that I can't help but love. I'm thankful that Walk the Line exists because Walk Hard exists. But James Mangold's a fantastic writer-director, and seemed like a slam dunk to bring him on board. I think he could have done a lot better and worked a lot harder, and the people who worked on the script could have done better if they had actually had something to say, and there isn't something to say. And if you had Short Round in the movie and you really lean on the trauma that Indiana Jones is not dealing with about his son, because, spoilers, Mutt dies in Vietnam.
And that's all we get is one sentence.
Yeah. And not like, I'm sad that my son is dead. I couldn't stop him from going. It broke my marriage with Marion apart. None of that. Like, it's implied, kind of, but we never see Indy dealing with it the way he should be dealing with it. This film is made in 2023. It's being made in a time and a place post Ted Lasso, post so many shows that have bucked the trend of the way male characters are written in terms of their ability to approach their emotions. That's why you need to watch Ted Lasso, by the way. That's the reason any guy needs to watch Ted Lasso, is because there's a better way of doing things that isn't what so many of us are doing now. I'm not saying you're doing it any more than I am, but media and entertainment can be transformative. I genuinely look at Last Crusade as like, that movie, I hope, brought fathers and sons together in a way that they hoped it could. Because that's clearly, that's a big part of that movie is, examining a relationship between a father and son who one was not present for the other. And, and what does it mean when given the opportunity to be there, you take advantage of it and you do it. And not only do you do it, but then you also, like, you're saving your father is part and parcel to making that choice at the end of that film. And Dial of Destiny just misses it all the way down. Like you said, Harrison Ford relegated to effectively a cameo in his own movie because he can't really do what he did in those movies because he's 80 years old. Not saying 80-year-old people can't do it, but that specific 80-year-old person cannot. And it's a shame. Antonio Banderas is in the movie. Why? I do not know. For how long? It is one scene. No, I am not fucking kidding. It's just, I don't know. And Mads Mikkelsen is in the movie, man. Like, that for me is the big shame. Mads Mikkelsen is in the movie, and they don't give him a fucking thing to do. At all. At all.
I mean, gotta mention Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Gotta admit, she's not terrible in this movie. She's bringing the bulk of the charisma. She's funny. She's happy. She is somebody that can act really well when she's given the great script. And this was not it.
She kind of comes off as a nagging woman in this script, like, which is terrible because Phoebe Waller-Bridge wrote some of the dialogue for that last James Bond movie, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge wrote Fleabag, and she's no idiot. And yeah, not the best use of her talents as a creator. I don't think this movie is the best use of anybody's talents. I guess I'm just sad that it came out and this is what it is. I kind of figured it was going to be this kind of victory lap of a movie, but it's not really. It would have been a victory lap if it had been directed by Spielberg and George Lucas had helped him. It would have been a victory lap if Indiana Jones wasn't 80 fucking years old. I mean, that's the reality here. I don't know what the fuck they were waiting for. I don't know what thumb was up what ass in the 90s and 2000s, but I guess people didn't like making money because they released the movies so late that by the time they released them, there were plenty of other things that had replaced Indiana Jones. I mean, yeah, at one point, everybody knew Indiana Jones. Not the case anymore. When the pipe is so much bigger than it used to be, and frankly, it's not just one pipe being a lot bigger. There's thousands upon thousands of pipes now that some people will never even engage with watching YouTube videos for their entire life. And I watch YouTube videos every day. Just think about that. And that's content there, let alone, professionally made content by big production houses. Like there will be people who will go their entire lives now, being born now, that will never see an Indiana Jones movie, let alone it even be mentioned to them possibly, which is crazy to think about. Like Indiana Jones does not have the pop culture relevancy anymore that he used to, and the budget for the movie and the amount of money that the movie made show that. The movie was like a $400 million movie, and it made like little less than $400 million. It was a box office, not bomb, but it seems like it broke even. Is kind of what it was. Yeah, it was a flop. For it being Indiana Jones coming out in a time and a place where you can make $1 billion on a movie like Endgame, the fact that they thought that this would somehow be that is a little much. But
to that point, too, the hard part is I think kind of we're getting to a point where all of cinema is like that. There are people that just simply don't watch movies at all, and that's our hope for the show actually is. Unless they're seeking it out, they're never going to find this, but it is our mission that we're putting out of the ether that we hope that we can excite some people to watch some new films and
to keep up with film.
Yeah.
Because film's an ever-changing thing. Like, film as it is, like there are trends within film that are ever changing. There are trends within the industry that are ever changing. And Indiana Jones 4 and Indiana Jones 5 are very good examples of the good and the bad styles and trends that were popular at the time. And I mean, I would say Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is more a legacy sequel than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is. I actually think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull fits nicer into those first three movies than Dial of Destiny does. It is a legacy sequel. You just happen to have
I'd agree.
You just happen to have the character in the title in the movie, the entire movie, but he's not doing much.
Right. Well, we're kind of talking about all around the pop culture side of things. So let's break it down. What is the biggest impact that Indiana Jones has had on pop culture?
Introducing the world to Indiana Jones. Yet another thing that could be franchised out and turned into a multitude of entertaining things that then would go on to be a ride at Disneyland, a series of computer and video games that do a better job at characterizing Indiana Jones than even the movies do. Plenty of books, a TV show we just talked about for a little bit. I mean, introducing the world to Indiana Jones, but I also think furthering the power of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, because obviously those two guys kind of at the top of the table here with this. This I think for me shows that Spielberg can do big budget right, and also that George Lucas is kind of a genius when it comes to coming up with ideas. And maybe his ability to execute on them kind of, your mileage will vary there, but I think Indiana Jones is an important piece of the pop culture tapestry for a certain swath of time. After a while, I don't think Indiana Jones is relevant, and I think unfortunately we're coming to the end of the time of Indiana Jones's relevancy being important for a certain group of people. Look, there's an Indiana Jones video game coming out later this year made by the people who made Wolfenstein. A little on the nose that the people who make games about killing Nazis are having a character who kills Nazis or is known for killing Nazis. But I am super excited for it. It's the one game this year that I would buy new, brand new. I would purchase it physically. And again, I think maybe for me, it's a hard question to answer because I know that I have friends younger than me that have never seen Indiana Jones that had no parents telling them to watch them. And at this point, that's what it has to come from. It has to come from someone older than you indoctrinating you into Indiana Jones movies, kind of like Star Wars. Like either you did or you didn't. Either your parents, because now there's going to be people growing up that it's like Star Wars, Harry Potter. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like Harry Potter has kind of supplanted that. And then Harry Potter got supplanted by Marvel even, like as like the modern topical pop culture thing. For a while it was Indiana Jones. For a while, it was Star Wars. For a while, it was Harry Potter. For a while, it was the MCU. Like, and those trends exist because of something like Indiana Jones, like a big pop culture franchise. Indiana Jones is one of the first ones, just like Star Wars. And that's a thing. Like, they kind of made that thing a thing that now everything is.
It's a good point. My answer for this is pretty obvious and on the nose here, but it's mostly just it solidified Spielberg and Harrison Ford as not just like a flash in the pan type of creator. Before Raiders, Spielberg had directed like 4 or 5 movies, but the big ones were really only Jaws and Close Encounters.
Right.
And at this point, it was this movie where somebody went, "Oh, okay, he is here to stay. Totally get it." And that was a big deal for him. Harrison Ford, obviously, he had a handful of gigantic movies before this. The Conversation, Star Wars, both Star Wars came out before the first Indiana Jones. American Graffiti, another one with George Lucas. He was in a handful of things, but even then, this is where he like leapt into superstardom. And much more, again, like you mentioned earlier, the whole Star Wars thing was much more low key, like the nerd side of things. It wasn't the popular thing to be a nerd at that time. So this is what brought him the mainstream success, the big household name in every household, and it was something that he wasn't going to let go for decades, and he's still here. It's kind of crazy. The other thing too, I kind of want to point out, just for genre, adventure movies like this were not done on this scale and this popular until these, and that's inspired tons of movies since then. I mean, we probably don't get something like Goonies without these being made. The modern stuff that has attempted to get some of the same feelings obviously all started with Indiana Jones, not saying that they're good or bad or anything, just the handful of movies that The Rock has done that are similar to this feeling or stuff like that. But yeah, this movie has inspired a lot of people, inspired a generation, inspired actors, inspired full-blown movies to be written in this specific genre because this exists.
Yeah, and also, what's funny is, as we sit here and kind of do a post-mortem on Indiana Jones, given that there isn't going to be anything else and there will be no more. I mean, I don't think that they're going to like add Indiana Jones things to Disneyland at any point. I mean, the stuff that they have is what they have, and they're not going to do any more because why would you? I mean, in 2015, Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar opened in Disney Springs in Walt Disney World, which is Jock Lindsay is the pilot from the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. But in a lot of ways, like, yeah, it's Indiana Jones is just like, it's a thing that a lot of people were into, but I don't know if it has the staying power of Star Wars. And they've also made it clear that they don't think it does, because after Dial of Destiny came out, all those things that they said they were going to do evaporated into the air, which is fine. I mean, good. Maybe if anything, the continuation of the Indiana Jones story will come from a different medium. And I think that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is the name of the game that's coming out later this year, made by Bethesda and Machine Games, which, again, Machine Games is the ones who worked on Wolfenstein, and Bethesda, if you're listening to this and you're a gamer, you're either going to have a chill sent up your spine or you're going to be happy. Take your pick. It's a first-person Indiana Jones game that then transitions to third person when you fight people hand to hand. And they have, it might be Troy Baker who's doing Indiana Jones's voice. Sounds close enough, but that's probably going to be where Indiana Jones lives from now on, is in the digital sphere. But again, that game's just going to be like watching a movie. And that's the thing that I'm excited for with that is, and this is something I wanted to talk about here because we're not going to get any other chance to talk about it. There are so many great Indiana Jones things that are not the movies. Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, the Indiana Jones game based off of Last Crusade. some of those games are like a point and click like adventure game where you're not necessarily like fighting, but you're, answering questions, point and click text-based adventure games. And then you get to something like Infernal Machine and Emperor's Tomb. Emperor's Tomb is a prequel to Temple of Doom. You are stealing Nuhachi's ashes in that game, and that game ends at the beginning of Temple of Doom. It's literally like he's walking into the club, and that's what it is. Like, so much of the cool Indiana Jones stuff has nothing to do with the movies. The movies were the vehicle to introduce us to the character, but I think the Indiana Jones Fate of Atlantis stuff is really cool. I think for me, that's probably the Indiana Jones story that I wish they had done, because my God, the way that ends is epic and insane. The Infernal Machine is interesting as well, because he's going back to like Babylonian times and dealing with like Babylonian gods. Emperor's Tomb is when he's in China and he's dealing with like ancient Chinese mythology. Staff of Kings, less said about that, the better. That game is a nightmare. But a lot of Indiana Jones stuff is just like nothing to do with the movies. It's just the character is there and okay. Indiana Jones is in fucking Fortnite, for fuck's sake. There are not just one, but two Indiana Jones Lego games that they released for the character. Like that's my point. Like in a lot of ways, I actually wonder how many people engage with Indiana Jones outside of the movies. Because at this point, there's only 5 movies and there are buckets, mountains of stuff. And so for me, honestly, like if you are an Indiana Jones fan and you did not know that these things are out there, like all the books that you can read where Indiana Jones, oh my God, some of the books are great. Indiana Jones and the Peril at Delphi, Indiana Jones and the Seven Veils, Indiana Jones and the Unicorn's Legacy, or my favorite, Indiana Jones and the Dinosaur Eggs. Those are all novels written in the 90s that you can read, because again, we didn't have any Indiana Jones in the 90s, movies, but we had people writing tons of books. And when I was on vacation recently, my dad found one of those Indiana Jones books and was reading it. He was just reading it. He bought it at we were at like a thrift store, and he bought it and was reading it. That book is worth $100 because those books are also hard to find now too, on top of everything else. So all of this to say, I think if you're going to engage with Indiana Jones at this point and you're not interested in the movies, there are plenty of other avenues that you can go down that would be just as entertaining or interesting depending on your level of interest in engaging with interactive media. See that as comic books or video games or kind of anything in between. And like we've said, honest to God, Indiana Jones has one of the best rides based off of it in any major theme park in the world. And I mean, the fucking queue to that ride is amazing. Everything about that ride is amazing. It will never not, every time I ride that ride for the first time, I'm riding it for that visit, that when I go, it gives me fucking goosebumps being on that ride. Cause it's like, this is the closest we can get to the thing that so many of us grew up with wanting to be. I wanted to be Indiana Jones as a child. Like, I think there are a lot of people that did. Maybe you as well. And that's like the closest any of us could ever get other than being archaeologists. But archaeologists found out very quickly, you don't fight Nazis as an archaeologist. You kind of just go and
work in a museum.
Yeah, dig shit up. So that's my impassioned plea for Indiana Jones as a franchise holistically, less just a movie series, presented the way we've talked about.
And to be cynical about that last sentence there, we got to be honest with ourselves. It is the Hollywood machine. So I guarantee you in 16 years or something like that, we will get a reboot of the Indiana Jones franchise after Harrison Ford is dead. And we will get somebody that's probably not even an actor right now that will be playing a young Indiana Jones, and they'll give us like 6 movies in a span of like 10 years. And yeah.
Can I tell you who I would totally want to see before we transition to the last question? There's a question I wanted to ask you. So say tomorrow Harrison Ford kicks the bucket. Not going to happen, but say it were to happen. Right now, they go, all right, Harrison Ford's passed away. We are recasting Indiana Jones. He's going to be yeah, right. Or he's going to be younger. So he has to, fucking no shit. Yes. Younger than 80. Okay. Well, good. He has to be younger as in the only rule that I would have here, the only constraint for our answers, he has to be around the age Harrison Ford was when he played Indiana Jones or slightly younger, so that he can age into the role a little bit, if that makes sense. I have my answer right at the top of my head, but I want to know if there's anybody. And if you say Chris Pratt, so help me God. I love killing Nazis.
Oh man.
It's got to have that Riz, baby. Somebody who's got to have that Riz, like in big amount too.
For some reason, the only thing I'm getting in my mind right now is Daniel Radcliffe and Robert Pattinson.
Wow, interesting. Do you want to hear what my answer is? And you're going to go, holy shit, this is a great... I hope you go, holy shit, this is a great answer. Austin Butler.
Oh, I'm not going to go, holy shit, that's a
it
great
could
answer.
totally work. It could totally work. The tone of Indiana Jones would have to be slightly different. Like, anyways, you can't just remake these movies. And I think Austin Butler has there's a level of charm to him that I think would work with Indiana Jones. I mean, he played Elvis, for fuck's sake. Like, I don't know. He's a charismatic guy. I mean, maybe he's a little, I don't know. He doesn't have the quippiness, but I also, we've never seen him do it. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I've never seen him.
Had the opportunity.
Yeah. Like, I've never seen him do that. And to be fair, like, we hadn't seen Harrison Ford do it either. So I know Austin Butler just seems cool. He seems like a cool customer, kind of like Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford still is an 80-year-old man, takes no shit from nobody. He is very much himself. I see Austin Butler the same way. I like Austin Butler as an actor a lot. He makes interesting choices. He was in Yoga Hosers. He's an interesting actor. Not Chris Pratt, though. Please no. Please God, no.
For almost anything.
Daniel Radcliffe or Robert Pattinson. Interesting. At least you weren't like Pete Davidson, obviously.
Oh, man.
Can you imagine that Indiana Jones movie?
No, thank you.
The Holy Grail is just full of cocaine.
Oh, geez.
Hey, that's not the cup of Christ. Pete Davidson.
They'd have to cast Ariana Grande to play with.
Yeah, all right. God. The most insufferable thing would be an Indiana Jones movie like that. Now starring Lady Gaga as his love interest. Okay.
Let's pull this in for a landing with question number 4. What is a cinematic bridge to Indiana Jones? Is there any other franchise that you feel like is like Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
That has... Are we just going to say Star Wars?
I would say we've talked about one of the obvious answers that I don't think we should go with, which is, Star Wars. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing, because a lot of the things that inspired Indiana Jones are so older than Indiana Jones. I'm not going to say those things. I would say, like, if you're a fan of adventure movies, action adventure movies, where there's globetrotting, if you're a fan of James Bond, you're going to like Indiana Jones. How's that? I think that's an easy layup. That's like me taking the ball, standing on a 6-foot tall ladder and dropping it in the net. That's an obvious one. Star Wars is another obvious one, just based on the Harrison Ford, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg connection. This is too specific. I kind of feel like if you had seen these movies, you would have seen Indiana Jones already, but maybe not. If you find yourself enjoying the films of Stephen Sommers, including but not limited to The Mummy and The Mummy Returns and Van Helsing, you might enjoy Indiana Jones based on where it comes in at for the things that the MacGuffins are based off of. Is there something here obvious that you want to say that I'm missing? Because I feel like there is.
No. You just took my answer right there. What I was
really?
going to lead into is there's, for years, there was a small fan base for The Mummy. But in the last 5 years, the fan base has gotten much louder and much larger. And we are many now that we can be proud about loving this movie. I think The Mummy is the very, very obvious tie. And if you're somebody that just went and watched The Mummy while it played in theaters again, and that was your first time seeing it,
Oh, not my
loved
first time, but I saw it in theaters.
and you loved it, maybe go and give Indiana Jones a watch if you never have, because it's got a similar action, adventure, romance type feeling that is classic.
Yeah, and can I also say, and this is, again, speaking of things aging better, The Mummy Returns has also aged better in light of Indiana Jones 4 and 5 coming out. Because The Mummy Returns is still a much better movie than either of those movies are, even with a child actor who's annoying. Not because he's annoying, just because he's a kid in a movie, and kids in movies just don't work with kids, don't work with animals. Yeah, and man, I honest to God admit, The Mummy is the best Indiana Jones movie that's not an Indiana Jones movie. It captures all of it, and also, I think a lot of people forget the first 40 minutes, first 40 minutes of The Mummy are kind of weird because it's like a horror movie. For the first 40 minutes of the movie, it's pretty much a horror movie. And then it ramps up into action adventure. I would actually say The Mummy, the first one, is action horror. And then the second one is action adventure comedy. Because the second movie's not scary at all. First movie actually has some interesting creature design, has some kind of good scares. I think it's kind of a gross movie as well in some parts. But yeah, The Mummy is just, there's a reason I love The Mummy so much. It's because for me, you know what? Let's end this episode on a real high note. I like The Mummy more than I like Indiana Jones. It's true. I do. I will tell you, I would revisit The Mummy more frequently than I revisit Indiana Jones. And I think that's because Brendan Fraser is my kind of action hero. And so is Harrison Ford. But Harrison Ford, and I think you would agree, there's a level of disinterest to Harrison Ford that comes through in all of his roles, even when he is committed. And my boy, my boy Brendan Fraser, that is not the case. Brendan Fraser, I don't know. I love him as an actor. I have not seen The Whale. I do not care to see it, not because of anything in specific, but I'm sure he's great. He won an Oscar. So you've told me already he's great. I don't need to see a depressing movie about Brendan Fraser in a fat suit. That doesn't sound fun. That doesn't sound like a good time to spend my evening. But if I, for an evening, want to go watch The Mummy in theaters 25 years after seeing it in the theaters for the first time, yeah, I'll go do that. And I did. And it was still, it's such a fun movie to see on the big screen because it is a big ass movie. There's a lot of wild stuff going on. It is practical effects with CGI that still looks pretty good for the most part in that first one. You can't say enough good things about The Mummy. Just there's no time for us to do a Mummy episode of the show because there's only 3 movies.
Right.
And if someone says 4, you know that person's a liar. They're a sinner. They're leading you astray. God. The fact that that's a thing is just... God. Yeah. The Mummy with Tom Cruise, everybody.
Oh boy.
Yikes. Big yikes, everybody.
Well, if anybody was listening to this episode and really wanted to hear more of your hot takes on films, Chris, where would they go check?
The Culture Cast. I mean, I've had more hot takes on this show than I have there, but that's because we're doing essentially comparative analysis here on this show. Culturecast.com is where you can find the weekly movie show that I do, but more aptly, you can go to weirdingwaymedia.com and check out all the things that I work on. There's over 20 shows. I am not on all of them, so if you don't like me, you could probably find somebody on there who you do like and want to listen to their stuff. 80s TV Ladies, The Projection Booth Podcast, Dark Destinations, Midnight Viewing, Filmentries, Feminine Critique, Twisted and Uncorked. Those are all things I have nothing to do with for the most part. So yeah, you should go check them out. What about you, Ryan Verrill?
I'm going to shout out a couple other podcasts as well that are on my podcast network. Please go check out Unsung Horrors, incredible podcast hosted by Erica and Lance that looks at a horror movie in every episode that has less than 1,000 views on Letterboxd, so it's truly unsung. And then the other show is They Live by Film, another podcast dedicated to film and physical media, kind of like mine. Great interviewers, great dudes, fun film analysis. It's a good time.
Is that Chris's show?
That is Chris's show.
I was just on that show. If you want to hear me pontificate for an hour and a half, that's where you would go to do it. And you should, I guess. I don't know.
Even though this episode will come out 9 months after that appearance.
That's fair. Hey, we don't know when someone's listening to this. They could be listening to this as the fucking sun approaches the earth and is burning us all alive. This is the last thing that they're watching.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah, well, could be, hopefully. Hey, all those investments that I made would just be poof, gone in an instant, in a flash.
All of mine already are anyways. Thanks everybody for listening. We hope you come back for our next episode where we will not be talking about Indiana Jones, but we will be doing our best to continue to push your boundaries of your interest in film. Until next time, watch Indiana